So, Malcolm, it's been reported that some trans people felt too unsafe or uncomfortable to come to the Tory conference here today on account of the LGB Alliance having a stall here. How do you respond to that?
When I first read the article, I was actually really upset because the idea that anybody would feel unsafe because of our presence would make anybody troubled.
Yes.
I was very troubled, and I even made an effort. I went over to the official LGBT conservative stand, and there were a couple of trans people there, and I thought, actually, I couldn't engage with them because I didn't want to add to any sense that they might be scared or they might feel vulnerable. Well, that's no way to encourage debate.
So this is, I think, one of the problems, isn't it, is that people do feel this very authentic emotion about your group. But it has been driven largely by misrepresentation and a kind of weird hysteria that's been going on amongst not just the media, but also celebrities as well. So let me put it to you, because this is the accusation that's continually thrown your way. Is the LGB Alliance an anti-trans group?
It's never been anti-trans. None of us are anti-trans. We set up the organisation, and the second people heard the name was LGB, they said, "Where's the T?" The second we were formed in 2019, we were accused of being transphobic. Nobody knew anything that we'd said. Nobody had read any of our material. We hadn't made a public statement, but by the very fact that we didn't have a T in the name, they said this was some sort of hate crime, that we hated trans people. And we've never been able to entirely get rid of that sort of public reputation.
So that stigma, as you describe it, perhaps we can address that. What was your rationale for it being simply called the LGB Alliance, not the LGBT Alliance? If you can explain that, maybe.
Well, we're focused on LGB rights, all to do with biological sex. My rights as a gay man under law are based on the fact that I'm attracted to other biologically male people.
Yes.
And we argue that, a bit like the Royal College of Nursing is a union that looks after nurses, they don't look after minors, but it doesn't mean to say that they hate minors because they don't look after the interests of minors, or they don't look after the interests of steel workers or railwaymen. Nobody says, you hate the minors, you hate the steel workers. So our attitude is, we're like the Royal College of Nursing. We look after the interests not of nurses, but of LGB people. And the fact that we don't claim to understand all the issues that affect trans people, that's why we don't do any campaigning on their behalf, and we wish them well, but that's not what our job is to do. Our job is to defend and protect the rights of LGB people.
I mean, this makes sense because, of course, sexual orientation, which is covered by the LGB, is not related necessarily to gender identity. So.
I mean, there's an overlap in as much as lots of kids growing up who, if you like, in the official parlance, are gender non-conforming. So you might have a little effeminate boy, or you might have a little butch tomboy. A lot of these kids do grow up, not all of them, but a lot of them grow up to be LGB, and some of them grow up to be trans. And so that I think maybe 20 years ago that it seemed to a lot of gay people that there might be some sort of overlap. We now know that in fact there's very little overlap, and lots of kids are now on a sort of fast track because they appear to be gender non-conforming. Teachers, educationalists pounce on this and tell them that maybe you've been born in the wrong body. And for us, we think that's a real problem, and we campaign against it.
And you want to have the discussion about these issues, and of course, in the climate at the moment, it's quite difficult to have those conversations. Have you tried reaching out to organisations like Stonewall to try and talk about this?
LGB Alliance was only founded after a long period of attempted engagement with Stonewall and other LGBT charities. And we said, look, if you're going to change same-sex attracted to same-gender attracted, and gender is a much more fluid and vague term, we think it'll have an impact on our rights, so let's have a debate. And of course, Stonewall's mantra was no debate. Well, if you don't have a debate, then eventually, after 2 or 3 years, you decide, well, reluctantly, we shall have to found our own organisation, and that's what we do. I mean, I'd like to return to the point about people saying we're hateful. Nothing is more effective about silencing an organisation or a person if you say that they or this person is a bigot. And that's what they've tried to do. They've tried to stop the debate. They've tried to stop us being listened to by saying we're hateful. But interestingly, I mean, I think it's a bit like that psychological trait of projection, where people take unwanted emotions that they have, in this case hate, and they project them onto other people. And so I look at people like Owen Jones, I look at some of the other activists in the field who seem to me to be filled with hate, and they go around and point at us and other people and say, you're hateful. And I think, no, I'm sorry, that's projection at work.
And how have you found the response here at the Conservative Party conference?
Unbelievable. I mean, I was, until maybe the Iraq War, I was a Labour Party member. And if you'd told me 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I'd be at the Conservative Party conference and I'd be getting love-bombed by MPs, ministers. A lot of them are not yet ready to take a stand with us and say they support us. A lot of them, I'll say, can I take a selfie? And they'll say, and not yet is usually the terms that they use. Yeah. But we've been love-bombed by ordinary members, a lot of women. I mean, that's the thing that I think people forget, is that women play a really central role in the Conservative Party and always have. They do a lot of the work behind the scenes, and they now obviously do much more than that. And so many women have come up to us and say it's so good to have a gay organisation that takes a stand in solidarity with women. And I think it's just an appalling situation for gay guys or LGB people to be seen as undermining the rights of 51% of the community. That's never going to be sustainable.
Malcolm Clark, thanks very much for your time.